Hello, I'm Lisa Flood.
And I'm Jason Angelette. Welcome to Faith and Marriage Today.
And today we have a very special guest. We're very excited to be joined in the studio by Dr. Ashanti Witherspoon. Dr. Witherspoon, welcome to Faith and Marriage Today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I wish if everybody could, you can see Dr. Witherspoon, but if you were in the studio with us, I would say right now, I already feel peace and gentleness emanating from you.
Amen.
And your story is one of extreme hope to go from a really dramatic, well, very difficult life that landed you in prison to a beautiful conversion to a lifetime proclaiming the gospel, right?
That's right.
Let's go back. I want to start at a little bit of the beginning so that people can hear how dramatic your life change was. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what brought you to a place that landed you in Angola prison.
Well, I was originally raised in the city of Chicago. You know, Chicago, like New Orleans, is a fast-paced city, a lot of activities, etc. My family, they're Christians. And I came up in a Christian household, but I started drifting. You know, like a lot of young people, you start drifting. And Chicago's also full of a lot of gang activities. And so I drifted and became involved with the gang. And being one of those people who wanted to be the best at everything you could be, I wanted to be the best gang member that I could be. And I rose to become a leader of one of the branches. And eventually, I left Chicago on the run for criminal charges, traveling around the United States to avoid prosecution. And I came through Shreveport, Louisiana, while under the influence of LSD. I committed an armed robbery, and the armed robbery led to a shootout with the police. 2 law enforcement officers were shot. I was shot twice, once through my hip, and the other one hit me on the right side of my face, traveled upward into my head, and stopped behind my temple. It was only by the grace of God that I lived. Because I was shot with the .357 Magnum.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, a lot of times when I'm speaking to young people into schools or at churches or in ministries, I have a plate in the roof of my mouth.
Really?
I pull it out, it doesn't have any teeth attached to it, but it covers a large hole that's in the roof of my mouth that shows the passageway that the bullet traveled. And I want to say I wasn't lucky. It was only by the grace of God. Because when that bullet hit, I was on the ground. The shootout was over. And you know, they were saying, "Where's this gun? Where's it?" I kept raising my hand. I don't have my gun. You know, blood was running out. I didn't even know where I was hit at that point. I wasn't shot in the head yet. And then one officer came up. He wasn't involved in the actual shootout, and he aimed and fired. And I was on the ground. When I saw him take aim, I turned my head at an angle. That's the reason it kind of went at an upward angle.
My goodness.
And I passed out and came to in the hospital.
So, so obviously, hospital. Praise God, you're here. You're still alive. But then they without parole, without the possibility of probation.
Okay, I missed one part.
Go ahead.
I know you wanted to jump straight.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went to trial. In November of that same year, it was November of 1972. And tried, convicted, and he sentenced me to serve 75 years.
75 years.
Yeah, without the benefit of parole, probation, or suspension of sentence.
Oh my goodness.
And I arrived in Angola about 2 years after that.
Oh my goodness.
Because that was 72. I arrived in the spring of 1974 because my case was appealed to the state Supreme Court, and it took that amount of time for the case to be heard. And then the conviction upheld.
What was the setting for Angola at that time? Like, it was probably one of the.
It was classified as the bloodiest prison in the nation. And that's not an exaggeration. There were stabbings taking place all the time, beatings taking place all the time, people being killed, raped.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it was a madhouse.
Yeah.
It was not. That's not an exaggeration.
Right.
And I'm kind of downplaying it.
Right.
With just these few words.
Right.
But it was literally
bad.
Yes.
So when you entered Angola, I mean, where was your faith? Where was your
Yeah.
heart? You had to feel pretty hopeless, I would imagine.
I did. Because like I said, I was raised in a Christian household, but I stopped serving God as a young person. I became involved in crime.
Yeah.
Thought I was a gangster in Chicago.
Yeah.
I wasn't. But that mentality was in my head. Wasn't serving God. Ended up in a shootout. And actually, when I was in the hospital, I was laying up in the bed, and the doctor came around. One of the doctors said, you know, you have a pretty large piece of lead inside of your head. I said, well, I heard one of the police officers say that I was shot with a .357 Magnum.
Yeah.
And he showed me the x-ray. And it looked pretty large on the x-ray. But you know, I couldn't tell what it was, but yeah. And so I was laying in the bed, and I actually asked God, I said, why am I still alive? I said, why am I still alive? You know, because now I'm just going to prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
You had to be alive because you had some praying people in your life covering you in prayer, right?
That's right, exactly. And, you know, because I had a number of relatives who were involved in ministry.
Yeah.
The ones who weren't involved in ministry, they were Christians, they were praying people.
Yeah. We were talking about that yesterday on the phone. When we were getting ready for the interview, Elisa was like, there must have been a prayer warriors surrounding you in the middle of your challenge, right? In the middle of all your rebellion and all the things that you're doing. You had people who loved you, who never gave up praying for you. And by the grace of God, the bullet doesn't take your life. The Lord keeps you alive. And then now you've got this question like, well, why am I still here?
And then you're going to the bloodiest prison and a very dangerous place.
Yeah.
Right.
So how did God begin to open your heart to his love? Because I'm sure that's what had to happen first.
Yeah, my thought is that you're going to like the hardest place to live on the planet, and the Lord is going to then all of a sudden soften your heart. How does that happen?
Only God could do that.
Yes.
Yeah, only God, they say only God could do that, but once I arrived in prison, I prayed a lot because you saw so much violence taking place around you.
Really?
And you know, when you first went into prison, the first thing that they tell you before you get to Angola is find somebody to make you a knife.
Wow.
And if somebody messes, this was a security guard, because you go through orientation. It takes a few days, you know, get your picture taken, the blood tests, all the evaluations, et cetera, et cetera. And the security guard that was leading us around during that time, when it is either a lieutenant or a captain, takes over on the last day of the orientation of the original entry, and he tells you, this is a security guard, an officer, he tells you, find somebody to make you a knife.
Oh my goodness.
And if anybody messes with you, kill them and kill them quick. Do not mess around, do not play with them. If you just kind of waving a knife, other people gonna come and attack you because they gonna say, well, he's afraid.
Oh my goodness.
And the officer said, kill them and kill them quick. And so in my mind, I just wanted to get a knife. As soon as I got to the dorm, I got a knife, and then another guy sent me another knife. So I ended up with 2 knives, and I felt pretty good. Now the security guard told me somebody messed with me.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's not funny.
No, it's.
But you know, thinking back about it, they said if somebody messed with me, kill them and kill them quick. Now he's not just talking to me. It was like a group of us that came out.
Right. That's your orientation.
Yeah, and so
Angola, welcome.
And so we were in this area. It's called the admitting unit. It's called AU. Back at that time, I'm not sure what it's called now, because so many things have been restructured.
Yeah.
And so while I was in the admitting unit, I prayed a lot, because crazy things happening there, even though we're just coming into the dorm. And we're praying that hopefully we get sent to this section of prison or that section. And I said, I hope I can be around some of the people I met when I was in the parish prison, because they were always saying, let me know when you get to Angola, and we've got your back, so to speak.
Right.
So.
Well, tell us about, like, so people started, obviously there's ministries, you know, one of the corporal spiritual works of mercy is to visit the prison, right? To go to seek people who are behind bars and to really bring that love and that mercy and that truth of our Lord that He offers to all of us, doesn't matter where we are, right? And so people started coming in, people were coming into Angola, ministering, leaving pamphlets, I guess, literature behind. Where was your heart when you saw those people coming in and you started seeing those resources available to you? Was it something that you were ready for, or?
Well, it was a little bit before that, because I ended up getting caught with 2 knives in my possession.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I was locked in maximum security. And they used to have people who used to be coming in, ministers from society, coming down the tier at least once a week. On the tier, and they were always leaving literature. And I'd get it, and I would read. I loved to read. I would read everything in it from, I knew, I could almost tell you how many sentences were in there, how many how many verbs were used. You know, I was an intelligent person.
Sure.
And so I would read it and I would study it, but I didn't give my life to the Lord immediately. And one day they came, 'cause every time before they would leave, they would always want to leave me in the sinner's prayer, and I'd always tell them, I'm not ready. And it continued on, and then finally, after a period, he asked me, want to lead me in the sinner's prayer, and I said the sinner's prayer. And afterwards, I felt good. But I was still in the bloodiest prison in the nation. And the activities that were happening on the tier, you can hear people down the tier, and they're playing dominoes through the cell bars. One's on the hall, the other one's in the cell. And I could smell the stench of the mop water. You know, so the atmosphere didn't change. I felt good inside. But the atmosphere was like, you're still in Angola.
So you're still in Angola. You've just given your heart to Christ. But I mean, you had decisions to make. How are you going to live in this hell as a man of God?
Yes, exactly. And when I asked myself that, I got on my knees and I said another prayer and asked God to give me the strength to, regardless of what happens, for me not to revert back to anything that didn't represent Him.
Oh, praise God.
And Dr. Witherspoon, at this point, you had no idea that you had any opportunity of ever leaving this prison, did you?
No, not at all.
So this wasn't for show, this wasn't to impress the guards, this was a conviction in your heart that the Lord was calling you where you were to live out that faith.
Exactly.
To live out that love that God has, to be that witness, even if you are behind bars.
That's right.
Did you start ministering to, like, how did your, okay, so your heart begins to change. Did the prison, did people that you were friendly with, if there were some, did they start to notice something's different with this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Did they ask you, what's going on here?
I noticed that immediately because, like I said, I used to carry 2 knives with me. I stopped carrying the knives. I said, and I don't need the knives anymore. And one of the guys said, what? I said, he said, you think angels gonna come down here and start protecting you? and one of them said, well, look, I got your back. Don't worry about it.
I'll be your angel. Well, there you go. That's stepping out in faith. That's that confidence. I feel like there's, you know, I've got a story, my own little story, but I know the moment of where when I was trying to like grasp onto the things of this world to try to make myself confident or secure, but it only left me insecure and just in a dark place. And then when I found that strength in our faith in God, like that gave me more confidence than no matter how much I could bench press. You know, that was He was my strength. He was going to be my God fights for me. So anyway, continue, please.
Yeah.
And so anyway, now by that time I had gotten out of the cell block when because I had returned to a dorm. Now to get out of the cell block, I had to go on a hunger strike because they didn't want to release me, because they said I was organizing too many people were attracted to me, and I was a natural organizer.
You were a leader.
A natural leader, And so people were coming around and they said, man, this is the guy, he shot these police, and he had a shootout with police, he had this. Now all these people are coming together. And I wasn't loyal to like people from Shreveport, which is where I was arrested, or people from New Orleans, or people from Monroe or Lafayette or so forth. It was like people from everywhere. It was just like God had given me this gift.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
And so people were coming. So they, once I was released, you know, like I said, I was in the cell, maximum security. Once I had to go on a hunger strike to get out because nobody when I went up on a reclassification board, they wouldn't allow me to be released. By that time, I was praying.
Yeah.
And I was saying, God, I want to be out, you know, and set me free, send me back to the population so I can get involved in the ministry program, so I can get involved in the education programs.
Wow.
But it wasn't happening. And a friend of mine, now he passed away several years ago, he sent word and said, man, only way you're going to get on there, you're going to have to go on a hunger strike. I said, go on a hunger strike? I said, man, they'll let me die.
But God didn't.
No, that's right. But anyway, he said, no, man, this guy who was up in CCR, that's the maximum security section of prison, he went on a hunger strike. He got out, he had people write letters in his behalf and so forth. So I thought about it, prayed on it. And what I received, and I don't want, it's hard to say, was this God or was this me?
Yeah.
But at that point, I said, man, if I can get 10 people to write letters, one to the governor, one to the Department of Correction, one to the warden, one to the Attorney General, et cetera, all these different departments, and then get each one of those to get 10 more people to do the same thing. After a while, it'll just multiply.
Right.
And so I don't know how many people wrote, but after a while, people were writing letters, and one of the security majors came up to me, sent word to me one day, he said, I'm going to hold a special reclassification board.
Wow,
You got a breakthrough miracle there, didn't you?
And it was all by God's grace.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
We went up for the the reclassification board. When I went up, he was there and he had a lot of security guards, and they all had baseball bats and nightsticks.
Oh my goodness.
He said, Mr. Witherspoon, I'm gonna give you one chance, and one chance only. If I hear your name involved in anything that's not right back in the population, you're going back in the cell and I'm gonna weld it, have them to weld it shut.
Oh my goodness.
I said, wait a minute, but you know, people lie on people every day. They said, I don't even want to hear any lies. And so they ordered me released back into population. So when I went back I was in a different dorm, same section of the prison, and one of my friends walked up and he said, man, I got your knife for you. I said, I don't want any more knives.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he said, what? I said, I don't need any knives. I said, you don't need any. You're still in Angola.
Yeah, right.
I said, I'm a Christian now. He looked at me and said, the angels gonna come down here and fight for you? I said, yeah, God will send them down here. He said, I'm gonna tell you, you got a knife, we got it buried over such and such. He was telling me where all the knives were.
Right.
Where all the weapons were.
Yeah.
And everybody who walked up, he said, man, you need anything? I've got an extra knife, or I've got extra this. I said, I don't need anything, I'm a Christian now.
It's like in prison, you begin to have favor with God and with men.
Yeah.
Right? This is not normal, is it?
There's that strength too. St. Paul talks about, cast your cares upon the Lord, and I'll give you a grace and a peace that's beyond understanding. You felt that conviction, and everybody's like, I don't. This doesn't make sense. This is beyond comprehension. Like you didn't go to some other like resort. Like you're at Angola still. Like, and that's the amazing part is that like you wanted to come back into that space. You wanted to be with the people so that you could minister to them. I mean, this is heroic. Like this wasn't because you were trying to be selfish and this is I'm gonna get my this was I'm on mission.
Again, with no idea you'd ever be released.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, so now you're back in population, and so how did that work with like when you were ministering to people? I know I wish we had so much more time, but you can tell us about that, and then all of a sudden, obviously, then there was the movie, this documentary that came into Angola in '99 or in the '90s, right?
Yeah, '98.
'98 that to record this documentary that was award-winning, and a lot of people saw it, and then because of that, there was some laws that changed that opened up some doors for you to be able to get your case looked at again.
Yes, and so. And the documentary came out decades later, and it wasn't like immediate.
Right.
So by that time I was maturing. I became a speaker, a CPR instructor.
Wow.
Certified by American Heart Association. I became one of the first inmate CPR instructor trainers.
Wow.
while I was in prison. I became a paralegal, became a minister, became a teacher, a counselor. I mean, over the years, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Over the years, and there were ups and downs during the course of.
Did you have friends that were like side by side? Like the Lord sent you
Yes.
out 2 by 2. You had somebody to lock arms with to kind of step into these places. And what was the culture like? Did you see Angola change from the time that you got there and the time that you've been putting all this work and this ministering into the people?
Yes, and there were a lot of people involved. It was like God had touched the hearts
Yeah.
of a lot of the people who were
Yeah.
serving time in
Yeah.
prison at the same time.
Wow.
And I know we all weren't listening to the same preachers
Sure.
or ministers who came in, but we were all involved in ministry. And it was like a whole new network developed over a period of time, and we started seeing the prison change. And I used to always wonder, why am I not getting out? You know, I was working in the law library. I was very good with criminal law,
Right.
post-conviction applications, and we were filing. A lot of people were going back,
Wow.
getting new trials. And so when I would file something on myself, it was always denied, and I was asking God why.
Yeah.
One day, and this is a key point,
Yeah.
because I was walking around one day. That's when they came out with the new law for parole, because I didn't have parole at first. They say anybody that's been incarcerated over 20 years and reaches the age of 45 should be allowed to have an appearance before the parole board. That didn't mean we were going to get out, but we had allowance
Right.
to just have an appearance.
Yeah.
And then so the law came up. They sent me a paper that told me when my parole date was coming up. I said, man, God has opened the door.
Praise God. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I went up for parole, and I was denied. And they were saying, we see you doing, by that time I was traveling out in society, speaking.
Yeah.
I've come down to New Orleans a lot of times.
You were leaving the prison. They were sending you out
Yes.
into the community to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah, speak at schools, community centers, juvenile programs, substance abuse programs, churches, etc.
Wow.
And I had a lot of favor everywhere I went. I had favor,
Yeah.
favor with a lot of very influential people.
Right.
But I wasn't getting out. And some of the people I was filing applications for
Yeah.
back in the court, they were going back being resentenced or going back getting new trials. They were getting out, and I was saying, what's wrong with this picture? God, I mean, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Is
Right.
there somebody I'm supposed to minister to me, or I'm supposed to minister to before I get out, that you haven't brought them in my path yet? So I'm looking for that person now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then I went around, I filed a sentence, a petition to be resentenced,
Yeah.
petition for a new trial, and a petition for parole board rehearing. I received a denial from each one
Oh my goodness.
within a week.
Yeah.
That's what made me really question.
Yeah.
It didn't make me question my faith, but
Right.
it made me wonder, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
What is it you want me to do, God?
Right.
I walked around the yard, the so-called big yard in Angola it's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're gonna walk around it, I think it's about 1.25 miles wide,
Okay.
you know, inside the
Sure.
fence.
Sure.
And so I was walking around there asking God,
Yeah.
and I said, what am I doing wrong? And God told me about praying. He said, change your prayer. I said, what do I need to change? You know, because I had developed a prayer life to where I didn't ask God what to do. I didn't tell God what to do.
Yeah.
I thanked God for having already done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, speak
You
those
prayed in
things.
big faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speak those things that are not as though they are, and they shall come to pass. And so I started thinking about a consistent prayer that I was praying, and I was thanking God for having sent me back into society where I worked and did His will, for the rest of my life, and etc.
Yeah.
And God said, I've answered your prayer. I was traveling out at one point on an average of 17 days out of a month,
Oh wow.
speaking and ministering.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
From Angola.
from Angola.
Yeah.
But I had to come back every night
Yeah.
because I was serving a 75-year sentence. And God said, think about the words of your prayer. And I was laying in the bed and I sat straight up and I said, man, there's 3 words missing.
Yeah.
Because I used to say, I thank you, Heavenly Father, for having sent me back into society where I work and do your holy will.
Yeah.
I added 3 words. I said, where I live and work and do your holy will. And when I added that, it was like this source. I mean, I just got a super sense of excitement. And I started saying, sometimes I would be running around the yard, I'd be working out, and that became my chant, so to speak, my mantra, my prayer, you know, because I would pray in the morning and afternoon, at night. We were always praying if somebody got stabbed in our section of the prison.
Yeah.
You know, we had permission from the colonel and the warden to go surround the dorm and pray over the dorm, because we knew that there was a demonic spirit that had influence to that. So we were doing that, and then suddenly when I was doing that, suddenly other things started happening that didn't look any different to me, because I already had favor with everybody from the head of the Department of Correction all the way down to the security guards.
Oh my goodness.
And things started happening.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting in the law library, and the security guard came and said, look, they need you down at the dorm. You need to make a phone call. So I went to the dorm to make a phone call. And the person who was on the phone, he was an employee. He said, you didn't hear this from me. I said, okay, what is it? He said, I think you need to file for another parole hearing right now. Not tomorrow, right now. I said, okay, what happened? He said, I can't tell you anymore because I wasn't there, but I'm receiving a message from the head of the parole board. And she didn't tell me to tell you that, but she knew that you had
to do that.
Yeah. And then so I went back up to the law library. A little while later, another security guard came in, and he worked with the administrators and the wardens and all. And he called me out of the law library, and we stepped to the windows out in the hall, right outside the law library, because all of them have bars on it. And we kind of leaned our head to the, he said, lean up to the bar. And he said, no, I'm doing this because I don't want our words to echo, but you need to go file for a parole hearing right now. I said, what happened? One of the members of the parole board said, you need to file for a rehearing. They can't bring you up again without you filing. So you need to file for a rehearing. And then I knew this was God working. Yeah. And so I filed generally when I file for a hearing, my application and supporting documents was almost as thick as the phone book. Right. This time I just typed a simple application, my statement of why I felt I should be released, praising God, and then we really could keep going on because this is such a story of hope, but we've come up against the end of our time. Yeah. Oh, wow. And we are so grateful that you joined us. This is such a story of hope. Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for being with us, and we'll pray for you as you continue your ministry of hope. All right, fantastic. To learn more about the great work that Ashanti Witherspoon is doing, if you would like to connect with him on social media, you can find him on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn.
Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see any of our previous episodes, you can check us out on YouTube. And while you're there, please subscribe to the channel. Also, if there's any questions or comments that you'd like to share with us, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks again for watching. Until next time, God bless.